Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Round, joined by Bryson Carbley, Ricky Rains, coming to y'all on a Wednesday evening. I was telling these guys before, we had a rocket launch to the moon. They looked at me like I was stupid. But here we are. Good to see you. Ricky doesn't have a hat tonight. The wheels are falling off already here.
Fucking bizarro world, man. I'm sorry. I look like a fucking old man without a hat, too.
The nice comb over going on.
That's just the fucking headphones, man. It's a full head right here. It would be
Ricky
cool.
was in a very intense 2-hour flag football meeting. Give the guy a damn break.
The flag football introductory coaches meeting went for an hour and 45 minutes today. It was absolutely nuts, man. I'm like, hey, I was literally in the chat and I'm like, hey, are we done here for my league? Can I fucking skedaddle? I got shit to do. What's up, boys? How we doing?
Bryson, how are you doing?
Good. Tired. But I'm here. I'm good. I'm ready to drink some beer and get into some football.
Bryson's working hard or hardly working. I don't know which one. But hey, let's get into it. StreamYard changed their branding. They got a whole new logo now. You guys haven't seen that. You're not going to see it here on the stream. It's really on the back end for us. But let's get into the
rocket all over again. He's talking about something that nobody sees.
Let's get to our chat. Very lively bunch tonight. Carter, who changes his name more than he changes his underwear. Here we go. Let's go. Panthers on Tap is back.
That's not Carter. Devin Lloyd isn't Carter.
I thought this was Carter.
Yeah, that's Carter.
Is it?
Yeah. See, you don't even know.
Oh. Hey, what is he on? He's on something else on Twitter. He's a cokehead on Twitter, right?
Yeah, he's a cokehead on Twitter.
Yeah. Keaton's in here. AO. Guys, I got a confession. Yeah, we'll follow that along here. It looks like just Keaton, and here we go. Oh, he moved from Alaska back to Colorado. Look at that. Okay. Enjoy the Rocky Mountains out there. Still beautiful, man. Going from Alaska to Colorado, that's still great.
He's living a life I want to live.
Yeah, are we sure that's genuine? What's today's date,
fellas? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I've been on high alert. I had lunch at the elementary school twice today, once with my kid, once with the Mike buddy, and all day I just had kids. Hey, you got something on your shirt? I was like, you little motherfucker. I ain't falling for it, man. And I fell for it every time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't fallen for that all day.
Because you
Carolina Nate,
rockets and shit.
What's up, everyone? Appreciate you for tapping in. I don't think I'm going to read this super chat, but he's 199 here.
Carter.
We're gonna cheers.
To make this.
We're gonna cheers to the super chat.
Cheers, Carter. Hope you're doing good.
Falcons on tap.
He says it's true. All right. I'll take your word for it, Keaton.
Well, congratulations then, Keaton. That's a cool move, man. Excited for you. Colorado's awesome. I went out there and saw a Cubbies game over at the Colorado Stadium and drank some Coors Light straight from the mountain. And went to a dispensary and was about as high up as my seats for that Colorado game. So I definitely enjoyed myself in the fine land of Colorado.
Let's get into what we're drinking this evening. What do we got on tap?
Who's starting? Bryson, you want to start?
Sure, I'll knock us out.
It's got a low.
No, actually not. Not tonight. I am starting with a beer from Mackay Brewing Company called Mango Reef. This is a company, a brewery in Ocean Isle, North Carolina. It is a blonde ale with mango puree, and it's very good. That's what I'm starting with. And then I got one from Charlotte, Ricky. I don't know if you've heard of this place.
Okay.
Town Brewing Company.
Yeah. Hazy Behavior. Yeah, that's a fun one.
I just saw a hazy beer. I was like, I'll take it. But got them both from a local bottle shop here and excited to give this one a try.
Yeah, I hit my local shop as well. That's a fun one, though. You're going to enjoy the hazy one. That's a pretty good one. I hit my Brawley's beverage shop here in Charlotte, North Carolina, the one that I think I told you about last time, that I went way too early and it wasn't even open, and the guy let me go in anyways. I waited until they opened the establishment this time. But I went back because, man, I'm telling you, if you're in Charlotte, and this is a plug that has nothing, I'm not affiliated with Brawley's, anything like that. I just love it. They have the best beer refrigerator you can go into. I'm talking like the finest of beers in there. And one of my new breweries that I have become obsessed is a bad word because it sounds crazy, right? But in love with, I've really like been smitten by the beers that they put out. Is this brewery called Other Half? And you've seen me pull up some of their beers before. I'll put this a little bit closer to the camera. You can see these are dumplings. Now, the cool thing about this brewery is that they just name their beers whatever they like. So this one is called Dumps. It doesn't have anything to do with dumplings. There's not pork or chives or ginger or anything stupid like that. This is just a double dry hopped Imperial Hazy IPA, but it is absolutely phenomenal, 7.9%. And the other one that I got from them is called Double Nectarone Daydream. And it's a double dry hopped Imperial Oat Cream IPA. And I'm really excited to try that one out. This one, I'll give you the explanation for this one. It says a hazy Imperial Oat Cream IPA brewed with milk, sugar, and oats, highlighting a single hop variety, Nectaron, notes of pineapple, peach, and passion fruit, smooth and dreamy. A lot like this head of lettuce you got right here.
Like a creamsicle? Is that the kind of vibe it's giving off?
No, the Nectaron is just the type of hops that it is. So, hops have like a naturally like citrusy type of flavor to them, like on their own. It just depends on how you do it, and they double dry hop and all that kind of stuff. So it really accentuates the citrus and the fruit forward flavor of the hops. So it's a single. Imagine it like a single barrel bourbon, right? Like it's one type is all it is. And this is what they're highlighting it on. But then it's brewed with the milk, sugar, and the cream or the oat cream to give it a smooth texture to it.
I'll tell you what, whatever Carolina Nate's drinking sounds really good here. He's got a blackberry maple cobbler sour ale from Weldworks Brewing.
There you go. Weldworks is cool too. What up, Nate?
Appreciate you, Nate. A name we haven't heard in a while. Pets in a Bathtub. Good evening, gents.
Favorites.
I'm drinking, is it Miami? Did you say that? Miami Pinot Noir tonight. Cheers.
Yeah, Miami's a good one from California. Is that a Napa? Is Miami Napa? I think it is. It's a nice one, man. I'm a wine snob as well. I enjoy my wines.
Keaton wants us to send us some sours or IPAs. Sorry, yeah, hazy IPAs.
Just say the word, Keaton.
Where the hell's Belk? I know Belk was starting early already, so I'm curious to see whenever he pulls up in here. I've had this one before, but a Southern Pines. I got this from the gas station, literally like 3 minutes from my house. Was it a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago? And literally 4 days ago, found out that a guy bought a $10 scratch-off ticket there and won $1 million. Just the other day, I'm like, dude, I was just there. So,
and you bought a damn beer instead.
I bought a fucking beer instead.
Man, at first I thought that story was going nowhere. I was like, you're going the opposite direction. I'm talking about this awesome beer pictures. I went to a gas station 3 minutes down from my house. But then you hit me with the curveball. That was wonderful. Good storytelling news, man.
Yeah, I try. All right, let's get into it. Got a lot to talk about tonight. Ricky's going to be dropping his rankings for both tight end and defense line. Before we get to that, I do want to just touch on a couple of comments Dave Canales made this week at the owners' meetings that happened. Kind of said a whole lot of nothing. Honestly, when it first came out, it sounded like they were already set. Oh, go ahead.
Don't we have one more order of business that we're doing tonight? Don't you want to get a banner running across the bottom?
Oh, yeah. What's wrong with me? I'm sorry, y'all. So I'm wearing the old draft hat. Thank you. I totally forgot about that.
The good people in the chat are here for a reason.
So we are giving away the newest draft hat that just dropped the other day. See if I can pull up a picture of it. But we'll be giving one away tonight. We'll probably give away a few more as the weeks go on as we get closer to the NFL draft. I'm assuming we're going to follow the same rules as we've done before. So if you're a member, it's 3 entries, which actually, Bryson, I need to get you that list at some point here. And then if you give us a super chat of, do we want to stick to the $4.99? I think it was $4.99.
Oh, we can. No, you know what? Let's open up. It's a smaller thing that right? Let's do it. $2.99, $3.
Yeah, so $2.99 super chat will get you an extra entry, and then we'll draw that at the end of the episode, and then we'll send it that way. I'm going to be out of town starting tomorrow, so I'll probably get it out next week, but hopefully it'll make it before the draft. So we'll get that all to the way, and hopefully someone's building. Ricky's maybe building a banner. I don't know, or maybe I am. I'll get there. But yeah, so we'll draw that at the end of the show. But back to the owners' meeting here. So Dave Canales came out when it was first reported. It sounded like Canales was already setting the table for Thursday night with. He mentioned tight end and wide receiver and safety as possible targets in the draft. But then when you look further at the actual whole comment, he basically named a bunch of positions. He mentioned the edge room as well as a possibility, and they kind of need to see what's at the top of the board when it comes to those guys. Ricky, I know we were going back and forth about this in our group chat when this initially dropped. You think this is kind of a nothing burger from Canales here?
This is about I'm sorry, I was starting to make a banner once you started giving me grief about
his comments about the 19th pick and where they
look, for me, man, what it came down to is it sounded a whole lot like we are going to take the best player available to us. And I know that he highlighted a handful of positions, but I think that was just to say we're aware of parts of our team and parts of our roster that we want to improve. If a player is available to us at the 19th selection, or in front or behind that place, if we value that player in a very high regard, we're going to take that player. We're going to be aggressive to improve our roster. And whichever position they select with the 19th or the 10th or 15th or 25th, whatever position they end up selecting in the first round, whoever they take, they are anticipating and expecting impact from that player. I didn't take that, guys. And then this is the big chatter, right? Was that eliminates offensive line and that takes out the offensive tackle, which has been a big conversation amongst fans and amongst us and other content creators. I don't think that it means that it's gone. I think that they just mean that if they were to draft an offensive lineman, it's with the intent purpose of that player coming in and challenging for a starting position, first of all, whether that's at the position that they played in college or whether it's a versatility thing where they say, hey, we think this guy can offer us competition at this position now, and then a future prognosis later on for team building, for roster building, because we know how expensive that unit is on the offensive line. But I do think that mentioning tight end, mentioning wide receiver, mentioning safety, that doesn't go without notice, right? They're literally saying to you, hey, we want to get better in those places. I like hearing that from coach, but it doesn't mean anything to me as far as like, that crosses things off of the list. I think that they are wide open. I think that their approach in free agency has afforded them that ability to be pretty damn wide open. And I'm excited about it, man. I think that this is a really good approach that they're doing with this.
Yeah, and that's the full comment, just so we can kind of get a gist of what we're talking about here. But Bryson, did you read into any of this at all, or think this gives some sort of hint, or not really?
No, I always I think over the years, Curtis, you've probably gathered this sentiment from me, but I never really read into a lot of what's said early on throughout the draft process or the meetings after the season's over. I think a lot of things that happen by coincidence and not necessarily them like giving away what they plan on doing. I've always kind of like had that sentiment about it. In regards to this, I think they are truly in a position to go best player available on their board. And if that's a tight end, then it's a tight end. If it's a wide receiver, then it's a wide receiver. If it's a tackle, it's a tackle, and so forth. So I think it's just they are not going to force a pick. They're going to take the best player, which is what I am wholeheartedly on board with. Going BPA no matter what, and I think that kind of just reiterates our belief in that from what Dave Canales said here. So I didn't read too much into it, but I know, Curtis, you like to dissect every little comma, 100%. Period, letter. So
hey, man, there's stuff out there. I agree to some extent with what you guys are saying because I do think they are set up to go BPA. But this is the first time we've really heard them mention safety at all this entire offseason, which I thought was kind of telling. It took them a little bit longer to sign Nick Scott, which I don't think they're truly satisfied with him there. Like, I think he's a placeholder right now. But I thought that was really interesting. And then tight end. I think this is the first time we really heard that. And there's been some things out there that, could potentially lead them to that. And I think people need to take that seriously a little bit. Now, I'm not saying this means, and when this first came out, I initially just threw out like, this is Kenyon Sadiq to, he's a Panther type of thing. But realistically, I do think people need to take both of those positions seriously. And if that is the best player available on their board at that time, do not be shocked if they pull the trigger on that. So it's kind of the way I take it. Not as dramatic as it initially sounded when it first came out.
And maybe they hadn't like outright said safety in conversations, but they did have the 30 visit set up with AJ Halsey, the safety out of LSU. We know that they were at, we follow the pro day visits and participation and stuff like that. They were at the Oregon pro day. They have been at multiple other pro days they were at the USC pro day. You got Kamari Ramsey is a potential player that they could look at. There's multiple. Texas Tech, you could even look at Cole Wisniewski as a guy later in the draft that they may have some appeal with as far as a deep safety that can also play a little bit of support. I just think that this is it's not a nothing burger. I hate that too, because I don't think that it's like not worth at least like valuing the words that they're saying to you, but I don't think that it's indicative. And I don't think that our coaches or our general manager or Brant Tillis would come out and eliminate a position from the conversation with the rest of the league watching, right? Every single soundbite that these guys are giving are being heard by more than just fans. They're being heard by the league. That's the way for them to get information as well. And so maybe it's intentional as well for them to highlight a handful of positions that aren't as deep later in the draft, that those prime players, if they fall, that could also be enticing for a team to say, hey, we really want this player. We want to trade up and get him. Maybe Carolina loves KC Concepcion. Maybe they love Omar Cooper. And maybe they like them better at pick 25, 26, 27. There are other teams that might want some of those other players at pick 19, and we could still get the guy that we covet and maybe collect some extra draft capital. So I look at it as valuable information, but not black and white. This is the law of the land type of deal.
Going to Keaton's comment, I can't pull it up because I'm trying to type something up here, but they did bring in XL. They did bring in T-Mac, both of those guys. I think XL was the local visit, and T-Mac they did bring in. And I think that was reported.
Yep, definitely.
But I kind of want to go to another comment he had here. And a lot of people assume this goes straight to tackle. But I think it's worth at least discussing, because this was something I believe I posed in our last mock draft, and just kind of like a hypothetical. Do you think Carolina would draft someone at 19 to be a depth piece on this roster? Canales talked about that. And now I don't know if the full quote was actually like hashed out on Panthers.com, but he did say, quote, I don't really believe in drafting for depth. What do you make of these comments? Because a lot of people quickly go to, well, a lot of people think if they go tackle, they're either, Walker's going to be there or they'll compete for that job, I guess. Do you think that kind of shuts out any of that? Or you just, again, think this is not, we can't read too much into this and can't just specifically talk tackle? And
yeah.
I can either of you guys on that.
I don't really believe paying income tax is fair, but I still do it. So I think it's something that he said that he might have a genuine belief in that. Like if he would prefer not to draft in the first round for a depth position. And I understand that, right? Like that's when you're using that high of draft capital on someone, you want them to be a difference maker in year one and not be sitting on the bench and waiting their turn. So I understand the sentiment, but you have to take the totality of circumstances into it when you are in the situation in the first round. You have to look at, okay, they signed the tackle in free agency. His name's escaping me. My gosh, I know you just said his name.
Rasheed
Walker. And then Ikwanu's a question mark. Walker isn't a for sure, like he's going to be a day one starter and be solid at that position either. So I wouldn't necessarily believe like a tackle would be like just a solely depth drafting a position there, because I think that if they did end up taking one there, he would come and compete for that starting position. So while I understand his sentiment here, and in a perfect world, you're not drafting for depth. I think Sometimes it makes sense too, especially when you have question marks on that offensive line. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but unfortunately, sometimes you have to go that route.
Yeah, I think that the not drafting for depth, and there was more to it, the total quote. I don't have the full quote, but there was a little bit more context to it that sounded a little bit less. Hey, we're not going to draft a guy and him not play. Like we're definitely going to force this player to play whenever we draft him and he's going to go. Again, it's just what we were just talking about. Rasheed Walker signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. Now, it's great for the Carolina Panthers that we were able to secure a player with his experience, and that's what Dave said talking about Walker. He's played a lot of games, and we love that. That's very valuable for us that he's played a lot of games because our starting left tackle has a torn patella tendon, and he's not going to play for at least the beginning, if not the entire campaign. We don't know if he's going to play, if Ike Ekwonu is going to be active in this NFL season, and what his level of play is going to be when he does return to the field. So I think that what he's saying there, and when you kind of like just read between it, we all freaked out about the Stone Forsythe thing, right? And when I say freaked out, I don't mean that like overblown it or anything like that. I kind of just mean that like the closest player to playing left tackle at the moment that he signed was Stone Forsythe. And then everyone paused and said, it's a 1-year, $2 million deal. Like he's not expected to play. 1 year, $4 million isn't exactly like a giant leap from the Stone Forsythe contract, right? And so if they do believe in one of these tackles, whether it's one of these guys like a Fano or a Blake Miller that has right tackle experience but has played some snaps at left, or if it's a guy like Caden Proctor and they really like him, or a Caleb Lomu, I don't think that those guys are just guaranteed to sit on the bench just because Rasheed Walker is there. I think that what they have tried to do with this roster for the past 2 years of building it up is building competition at positions. They're not just handing starting positions to players any longer. They are saying we're going to make everyone who plays be our best option. Nick Scott is a good example of that. I think they appreciate what Nick Scott brings to the roster, but if they were able to get an AJ Halsey that they have a visitor, if they're able to get Dylan Thieneman, you're telling me that you think that just because they like Nick Scott and they re-signed him, right, that he's guaranteed to start over one of those guys? Even if we draft a safety in the second round, it's still not Nick Scott's job just because it was his last year. These guys have to win these jobs, and that's what I take from the whole we don't believe in drafting for depth. Now, I don't think that means that they're going to go and draft Ty Simpson at pick 19 because they have him ranked highly. This is Bryce Young's team as far as the quarterback. That's the one position, right, that I would look at and say there's no like immediate threat of somebody else coming in and playing. Every other position, including interior defensive line that we'll talk about tonight, you need multiple of them. And there is the money element to this all that they don't just draft for 1 year. They're not building the team for 2026. They're building the team for the next handful of years, and they have extensions on their radar. They have contracts that they're going to have to work out with other players. All of this is parts and pieces to a puzzle, and I just think that we should take it, with a little bit of a grain of salt when he says that he won't do one thing, because as far as most people were concerned last year, Jalen Walker was a shoo-in because of the way that they spoke about the first round pick. And then they went T-Mac because T-Mac was who they had ranked higher. He ended up being there at 8, and they went with it. So I think they're going to have that same approach this year.
Just to add something real quick, I think another aspect of this like tackle conversation is that on the other side, right, we have Taylor Moton, who is not getting any younger, who is not a cost-controlled option at this point. That play that we have seen from Taylor Moton year in and year out eventually is going to start to fall off, just solely because of age. It unfortunately happens to every player in NFL history, right? The older that you get, the less level of higher play that you have. So I think having that option as, okay, he could compete for the left tackle spot, and then also if Taylor Moton's play does fall off or you want to move on from him after the season, like you have your answer there. I think there's just so much value in that. So I don't think it's necessarily just like pigeonholing like a pick at 19 for a tackle as a depth piece. And I don't even know that that's what Canales was trying to do here in regards to like if he was speaking specifically about the tackles position. Maybe he was talking about quarterback, like you mentioned, Ricky. Like he's not drafting a quarterback in the first 3 rounds to be a backup. Like that's not happening.
That's
and
right.
I would 100% agree with that. Like I have no qualms about that. But
and let's not forget that we played literally a baker's dozen combinations on the offensive line. So even if everybody is playing up to their standard when healthy, the caveat of when healthy is a significant caveat that is real life in the NFL. So, like, even if you draft a guy and he doesn't start week 1, who's to say he doesn't play 13 games for you? And if he comes in relief of somebody who's injured, right, and he plays better than the injured player, they're not going to give the position away to a $4 million guy. So, like, I just think that you can't take this as gospel, man. You just take it as him saying that whoever they draft in round 1, they have plans of them being a focal point of this team at some point this season.
All right, let's go to the super chat here. James Cody, 8265499. If we can start writing down these super chats, and then I will work on getting this wheel together. But Cody, appreciate you.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Good to see you get in there and get you a chance at this hat, man. The hat's not bad this year, boys. It's not like my favorite. It's not like the most outstanding design, but I think it's sharper than what we have had for most previous years. I don't hate it by any stretch.
Yeah, it's kind of basic. I don't know. Like, I agree with you. I don't think it's terrible. I've seen worse, but
I'm a basic hat guy, though, man. Like, I don't do the super duper flashy. I got a couple flashy ones, and I actually was going to wear my new Hornets hat. Went to the Hornets game against the Celtics the other night, and they had the brand. I know I'm going off Target here. Sorry, guys, but they had the collaboration with 704 Shop, which is a clothing place here, a clothing line here in Charlotte, and it's a really cool Hornets collaboration that they did. And it's got 704 written across the bill of a new era. But the 7 and the 4 have the old school Hornets like stripes, the pinstripes from the jerseys of like the gold, purple, and white. And then the O is the old school Hornets logo of Hugo dribbling the basketball. Super sweet, man. And that's about as like flashy as I get with the hat. So when I saw the regular Panthers draft hat, I was like, yeah, that's a cap I might be able to throw on this giant mug.
We got Mr. Hunky Dory 74, $10, 2026 Panthers draft, 1 sexy pick at 19 or trade in first round, second round linebacker, rest non-sexy Hawk Mollies, which are my favorite, just my opinion.
I ain't mad at that. Cheers, first of all,
Cheers.
to the super chat, Mr. Hunky Dory. But that would be a great strategy. If you're able to do that, retool the trenches after you get a couple of those impact skill positions. That would be cool, man. I'd be all for that strategy. It just depends on how it falls, man. I really don't like zone in on one player. I've got guys that I like, but you got to see how that board falls on draft day.
All right, here. Sorry, I'm trying to close all these damn banners we got. Where were we? What the hell were we talking about? Okay, here we go. I wanted to share this. We're going to get to Ricky's rankings, I promise you. But Mike K had Mike K and their Processing Blue podcast with Alex Zitlow of the Charlotte Observer. Mike K had an interesting quote today out of that podcast, and I wanted to share it with you all if I can. I don't know why it's not popping up here. There we go. Yeah, you can't even see it anyway.
Shout out Mike and Alex Zitlow, man.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing that because you can't even see it. But I'll read you the quote. And Mike said, and Mike is very, what's the right word? He is very
tuned in.
Tuned in, but he's very strategic in what he says.
Yeah.
And he said, I would keep a pretty close eye on KC Concepcion. And in my and then later he was talking about him and how he would kind of fit into the offense. Then he said, and in my conversations, I do think they are very much open to drafting a wide receiver early. It was something we've talked about on the show. We've actually, I think, now back-to-back mock drafts, was it?
Yep.
That we took wide receiver before free agency, and then after the dust settled on who they went with, we went back to that well as well. So, guys, I mean, this could be a real pocket. Carolina might go 3 years in a row if that's BPA to get Bryce Young, that wide receiver. And I mean, what does this say about Liggett? I think is the bigger question. Like, it's crazy.
That's the question that I posed is like, what does it say about how they feel about him? And I don't think it means they're out. And Dave spoke about Xavier Liggett recently as well. We should find that quote because I thought that was interesting too, the way that he described how he feels about Liggett and where he is with his progression and his role anticipated next season. But you know what? People also say that Xavier Legette pick wasn't really a first-round pick. And, I'm not a believer of that. I think they took him in the first round. They moved up to get him. Whether they moved up as 50 spaces in round 5 is all they basically gave up for the swap of the first-round picks. It still matters that they moved up in the first because that was their guy, and they didn't want him to get away. I don't think, though, that you can look at it and say that you shouldn't take another first-round guy. What if you took a first-round guy that just totally sucked? And I'm not going to say that about Xavier Legette, but there are plenty of fans that do. If you still don't have that answer, Jalen Coker still hasn't been healthy for a full season, all you're really looking at as a sure thing is Tetairoa McMillan. Do we really want to go back into this situation where if Coker misses time, that we're sitting here with Tetairoa McMillan and a handful of, hand-me-downs? That's not what you do. If you're talking about surrounding and tailoring the offense to Bryce Young, which they have commented recently this week and said they plan on doing, I think it makes total sense to get some of these guys like the KC Concepcion, like the Omar Cooper Jr. that they just announced they're going to have a visit with today, and they've done a lot of work on him. Jordan Reed of ESPN brought that up. These are guys that create with the ball in their hands. These are guys that have speed threats. These are guys that are weapons that can generate offense from different alignments and different roles. I think that matches what Bryce Young needs. I think that matches what Carolina's offense has missed. And I don't think that Xavier Legette necessarily adds that dimension. No matter how much they might have wanted it, it hasn't proven to be that way for him. He is more of a deep threat and a catch the ball at the high point, and that's where you make your hay. He's got to shore that element up of his game, but that is still where he should win. So I don't think that it eliminates these players from that. I thought that the center thing, Bryson, was interesting because we talked about that on the show, and a lot of people said, well, hey, they got Luke Fortner. Like, I don't think that they're going to be interested in signing or drafting a center high. Mike Kay also said that he felt like they would be looking at a center over an offensive tackle. That plays with exactly what we just talked about this last mock draft and how I think that they would 1,000% be interested in locking up a center of the future. And maybe Luke Fortner and his contract also aren't that sure thing of a starter position. And then if you get a guy like a Connor Lew or a Sam Hecht or a Logan Jones, they come in and they're better, they're going to be your center.
And by the way, just to add to that before Bryson jumps in, Canales did say Fortner is going to compete. I think that was the key word in all of that. Like he didn't say this. He was the surefire starter week 1, which I think a lot of us thought because of just his background, and he's had some starts he did with the Saints and stuff. But Bryson, go ahead.
Yeah, I love the wide receiver in the first round talk. I am.
Bryson loves those flashy guys.
Give me that wide receiver in the first round. Love it. The pick 2 years ago wasn't the best wide receiver to take in the first round, but he's had his obvious struggles. Talking about Xavier Legette, and I think that we're looking at the third year in a row potentially taking one. I think that does say a lot about how they feel about Xavier Legette and his at least play he's shown to this point. I don't know if that means they're out completely on him, but I think it shows that they are at least frustrated with the progress or lack thereof that he's shown to this point. So I love the KC Concepcion, the Omar Cooper, the Jordan Tysons of the world in the first round. I'm a big fan of just surrounding Bryce Young with the most amount of talent possible. And I think Ricky brought up a great point of, if Coker's hurt again, or God forbid, T-Mac suffers an injury, you don't have the best depth in the world at that position, especially when you're talking about, Xavier Legette, and then you bring in John Mechie and David Moore and so on and so forth at that position that could see very high amounts of legitimate playing time. And I think if you shore up an area that's as important as the wide receiver is to the quarterback, and you're talking to the media like the Panthers front office is about, this is our guy, we want to build around him, he's the guy for the team for the future. You want to make sure that he's insulated and that he has options if an injury does happen. And we all know that injuries happen, and it's very likely that the Carolina Panthers will be having to deal with a major injury. I mean, they already are with their left tackle, and the season hasn't started. So I think if you're there at 19 and your best player available is a wide receiver, again, as I said earlier on the show, you take that. It doesn't matter what you did last year. It doesn't matter what you did 2 years ago. You draft the best player on your board and you plug him in, and he's going to play, and hopefully he's going to make a difference if you have him rated that high. So, love it. Give me all the wide receiver in the first round talk. I am a big fan of it.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up this hat here quick.
Yeah, pull up the hat and we'll bring up the super chat. And then I want to run through just a couple of the other comments before we move on to the rankings. But Carter, appreciate the super chat. There's your entry as well, or another entry, let's say. Carter says, I love the Panthers draft last year. The one issue is that they didn't draft an offensive lineman. Now that's a need. I'm glad they're desperate. Can I see the hat? Carter, there's the hat right there on the screen. You see it. It's got the processed blue top to it and the black brim. It's got like a silver metallic outline around the Panther. Inside, it has the Panther's eyes on the front two panels. It's cool. It's got a little NFL draft pin. I mean, it's a sharp looking hat, man. Like, it's not a bad hat. You're going to be able to wear that, and you're not going to have to like be stuck wearing that for only draft night, right? Like, it doesn't have any kind of like verbiage. It only says draft or anything like that. It's not the Frank Reich one that has like 7 different colored panels with like some sort of fleur-de-lis type thing on it. Like, it's a good looking hat that you can wear a lot of times. I think it's a pretty sharp look. Real quick, the other ones that I wanted to go to, this comment right here, him Patchy to Fade King. Next year is a very good O-line class. It may be, man. But one of the biggest things that happens every single draft cycle is that when you start going through a current class, you start saying, well, next year is a huge class for this position. I remember this year was talked about as a huge class for quarterbacks. Now, all of a sudden, looking at the quarterback class, it's a barren warfield out there. Like, nobody wants to take anybody other than Mendoza, and he's going to go 1. So you run this risk. Now, the linebacker class is tremendous this year. There's a lot of people that think it's going to be bad next year. You have no idea how these college players are going to progress, how they develop. Every single year, it's easy to say that next year is a better chance. But teams that are competing right now don't have the same idea of looking for next year. They are looking at this year as well, and they want the talent that's going to help them win. So I appreciate that conversation, but I'm not sure that I subscribe to the same exact thinking. Keaton, with the 19th pick in the NFL draft, the Carolina Panthers select Ricky Raines, left tackle Panthers on tap. They have these arm thresholds. They have these athleticism thresholds. And I'm pretty sure they have age thresholds and just being able to move without pulling every muscle in your lower half. So I think that I'm probably off the board, Keaton, but I do appreciate that. And boys, Pets in a Bathtub asked here, can we spend 5 minutes discussing the PFF demise? And I think that's a good idea. This is an interesting topic. If you haven't seen the news, PFF has sold a lot of their proprietary business, I believe, to, I think it was Teamworks it's an AI company that is working with multiple sports leagues. I'm assuming that this is mainly out of the content part. They got rid of a bunch of staff, including Trevor Sikkema, who is the wheel that turns that entire place. He's not going to struggle. Trevor Sikkema is a star. I am a big fan of him. He's got the NFL Stock Exchange with him and Connor Rogers, a tremendous pod, if you haven't heard that, for draft content. Those guys do great work. But it is very sad to think about how something so major was able to be wrapped up so neatly in like a morning of just like, hey, it's done. We're moving all of this. For me, we always stressed PFF was not like the Bible. It wasn't gospel. You shouldn't take the grades and say this is what makes a good or a bad player. But the data that they provide is invaluable. There is not a lot of places that provide in-depth analytics for offensive line, defensive plays. And that is what they do. They do a lot of good charting. If you can just use that information, and my understanding is that that's still going to be available. We'll see how well they maintain all of that. But yeah, dude, that's crazy. Pets in a Bathtub, that whole era shut down basically. And you're going to see a lot of people all of a sudden plant their flag and say, we're the leader now. Just remember, everyone is the leader while they are, but it's not guaranteed, right? Like you're not there forever. It's your time, not your forever. So shout out to the guys at PFF. There's a lot of guys in there that sucked, in my personal opinion. There's a lot of guys that were cool and worked hard. The guys beneath the lights that were not, front and center, those dudes grind, man. They watch every single football game and they chart those things. That is unheralded heroes for guys like me that use that data. So I appreciate PFF. Guys, what say you about the way that PFF kind of like went downhill?
Go ahead, Bryson.
Yeah, it was sad, man. It really was. You mentioned Trevor. I've been a fan of his for a while, and the work that he does for leading up to the draft and then throughout the year with all of his NFL content. I agree, though, Ricky. He's going to find a job so quickly. Someone's going to jump on that and offer him probably more money than he was making at PFF to bring him in because he's a star in the content game for football in general. So it's sad to see like the new age of like a lot of stuff is coming to fruition of like AI is going to take my job kind of thing. And you're seeing that more and more as we progress through time. And it I think it's going to change a lot of the way that we are normal or that we've become accustomed to of doing and seeing things. So I think this is just the way of the future as it sits right now in regards to AI taking a lot of those jobs that necessarily it shouldn't. It really shouldn't because you need that human aspect that human opinion in things like this. Like it can't like AI is just taking like it's like a numbers based thing for them. Like when Trevor's watching the game film, like it's like he's using his experience in scouting and looking at players and like comparing it to the past. Like that's just not something that AI does and can do. So that's sad, and I'm sure he's going to bounce back on his feet. And for all the other people that lost their jobs at PFF, you know, it sucks to be in that position. Like it's so scary to not know where you're going to be working the next day. So my thoughts are with them, and I'm sure that you know they were involved in a high level effort like PFF. That's a great thing to put on a resume. I'm sure they're going to be involved in another high level effort somewhere else, and yeah. So shout out to them. I mean I'm not really like I've never. I would use PFF grades as like a basis, like you know, it's a good starting point. I think like it kind of gives you an idea of where this player is viewed. But now I'm like, fuck it, I'm not using that shit like for anything. It's worthless to me.
I apologize for not knowing this. From my understanding, the entire thing is not going away, correct?
Right. It's mainly like the content side, like the podcast, shows, things of that nature. I think like original content maybe as well, like articles and things. Yeah. But my understanding is that the premium stats is still going to be in place. I think that there's just questions on how will they maintain that, who's going to be running it, will they have the same focus on the same certain things, and like Bryson just alluded to, you remove the human element, so how much does it have that factored into it? Is it strictly numbers, and there's value in it being strictly numbers, but you do lose some, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's shitty. I don't wish anyone losing their job. Right. And didn't Collinsworth the one that came up with that, or is this a whole nother?
He was like a chief investor, I believe. I don't know that he necessarily came up with it, but I think that he was a chief investor. I think that
he was somewhat of one of the leads on that.
Yeah.
But no, like Bryson said, like I don't think we've ever. It wasn't the Bible for us, but I also think it was a very good jumping off point for a lot of folks. Us content creators, I know we use it a ton when we look at mock drafts. We've used it when we way back, and it was just me and you, Bryson. We looked at the grades, and granted, we gave our opinion of how we thought the offensive line played, but we gave those grades too from time to time each week. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great tool, and I am not I just phrase this a better way. Trevor Sikkema, that dude will find a job tomorrow. He is very talented. I have no worries about that guy finding something. Like he is wanted, and I think you saw that in the outpouring. And that was he's like one of the biggest ones that I know that work for that channel. I know, Ricky, you probably know way more.
Yeah, what Brett Coleman say about Trevor Sikkema? He's like, this is like Peyton Manning hitting free agency in his prime. Like,
I thought you were going to say something about Brett Coleman, because Coleman has said some.
Well, that's the high regard though that some of these guys are held in, and honestly, man, it was a pioneer for people getting involved in doing their own independent research and content. So you gotta give the flowers for that, but at the end of the day, there's other avenues now, and you know, they're the godfathers that laid the steps for a lot of that. But it is worth talking about. So I'm glad Pets in the Bathtub brought that up. All right, so question: if we're going to move into these rankings,
well, I got one more.
Okay, well, let's let the chat do while we do this. tight end or defensive line first? I'd like to know
good.
what everyone would like to hear first. I'll pose it on Twitter as well. We'll hit this last topic and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, sorry. I have been I'm paying attention, but I'm trying to get this wheel sorted out. I wanted to touch on this one last thing that popped up today, and this was from The Athletic. And it kind of honed in on just measurements that Dan Morgan goes by for the most part. He kind of strays if there's outliers to this, but I thought it was worth at least talking about. And I had tweeted this out today, but he basically said 32-inch arms is like the threshold for an outside linebacker and for them and what they value. And then he went on, like later in the article, he said, that's not to say I would take a linebacker with short arms, but you have to have other factors. Then he mentioned like super instincts like Kuechly can trump any measurements. Obviously, the dude he's a Hall of Famer. Like no shit. But anyway, I thought I had fun with it. I mentioned Jacob Rodriguez because he definitely does have shorter arms. I think it's like 30 7/8, is it? Ricky probably has it on the top of his head.
I believe it was, yeah.
It is 30 7/8. So definitely short arms. Does not have the instincts of Luke Kuechly, but he does have, I think, of this class, has good instincts. But Ricky, we don't even have to focus on him necessarily, but just that measurement of a whole in this class. I know we're not ranking the linebackers. We've already done that to this point, but in that threshold, who are the guys Carolina should be honed in on then, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of them that you could look at. Anthony Hill Jr. is a guy that we've met with, crosses over the 32s, 32 3/8. I believe that we've also met with Jake Galladay, or we were at his pro day. That's 31 7/8. So he's right there at the threshold. Josiah Trotter is a guy that I think they could have some interest in with his thumping downhill play style, his run defense right now, and his instincts. You talk about, quick trigger and stuff like that. I think that Trotter is one of the best in the class. He's 32 2/8 or 32 1/4. So there are guys that fit. Obviously, Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese are going to cross those thresholds. The likelihood of them being there are very unlikely. Caleb Elam's-Orr is another guy that we've talked to, 31 1/2 inch. So there are guys that are really close to it. CJ Allen is 31 1/2. I know that's a guy that there are fans in the fan base that like him a good bit. And then you move down a little bit further and you got like a little bit more on the teeter-totter of it, where Jacob Rodriguez is 30 7/8. Torian York is 30 flat. He might be out of the picture for them because of that. Kyle Lewis is a guy that people like a lot with his coverage ability, his ability to play the star role, 31 1/4. Looking at some of the other names, I mean, that's Bryce Betcher is also sub 31. I believe he's 30 3/4. So, I mean, there are guys that are going to be outliers. Keyshawn Elliott is 30 1/4 or 31 1/4. There are guys that are going to be difficult to kind of like rationalize and say. A guy that I like a good deal is Jayshawn Barham, the edge linebacker hybrid out of Michigan, played at Maryland. He also had the 34-inch arms. He's a big guy. He's 6'3", 240, really physical, dominant player. But do they see him more as an edge or an off-ball guy? These are things, though, to pay attention to. Jacob Rodriguez does have good feel and good eyes for the position. That is not something that I'd knock him for. I just have a hard time seeing this group, Dan Morgan specifically, guys. I'm just going to be honest about it. I have a hard time seeing him favoring a linebacker that plays a less than physical style of play at that position. And Jacob Rodriguez is fine at sifting through and maneuvering and trying to avoid tackles, but or avoid blockers. But you have to be able to take on and blow up blockers. Collision has to be part of that position. Trevin Wallace has had multiple surgeries and shoulder issues because of that exact thing. And that was a big sticking point. Is that going to be able to kind of correct itself? And is he going to get right for that? But he's a physical player. They bet on traits for him. They like to bet on traits for some of these positions. And so looking at some of these guys, I think that you got to look for guys that are physical. And Jacob Rodriguez may be that outlier for him. I'm not trying to say that he is out of the running. There's no way. Dan Morgan was standing next to him at the pro day, right? Like the GM doesn't just go to a pro day if he has no interest. There's also other guys that play at Texas Tech that he could have been there for. Lee Hunter, the nose tackle there. They've got, both edge rushers. Does David Bailey fall enough and they decide to do something? I know Canales even mentioned something about the top pass rushers on the board. Do they fall And if they fall, how far? And is that a position where they're comfortable moving? So I just think that with the linebacker position, I have a hard time seeing a guy like Dan Morgan, who would literally run through a wall if there was a football on the other side of it, is going to look at a guy and say, I'm not super worried about the fact that he avoids contact as often as a guy like Jacob Rodriguez, in my opinion, seems to.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the this is what we like measurement wise, so this is what we're gonna do kind of thing. I think they've missed out on some pretty good players because of that, and not this front office and coaching staff in particular, but in the past in Carolina. So I and Curtis both. I think we both are kind of Curtis maybe a little bit more a fan of Jacob Rodriguez than me. It seems like he's madly in love with him, but I do like Rodriguez, and I would say to a counterpoint for you, Ricky, is you mentioned that Dan Morgan did go with last year or 2 years ago whenever Trevor Wallace was drafted. His stereotypical prototype, like a thumper. He's got the physical traits, and we've seen him struggle mightily on the field. So maybe that's changed his opinion. And this is just me speculating. I don't know at all, but maybe that's changed his opinion. Okay, let's go with the instincts, the things we can see on film, and then see if we can work around the not having the physical traits that's common that we like at that position. So I think Dan Morgan, in my eyes, is someone that's willing to maybe change something that he's believed for a long time. Like, he seems like a very open-minded GM and open-minded person to listen to other people's opinions, and then also learn from his mistakes that he's made in the past. So I could see them going I could see them going Rodriguez, but I wouldn't be surprised either if it was what you were saying, Ricky. I mean, I think it's really they've done a really good job of like kind of leaving us up in the air this year, and obviously that's their goal, right? They don't want anyone to know what they're doing until the card's submitted and the name is read. So I'm a fan of Rodriguez, and I think if he's there in the second, would feel very comfortable taking him at that spot. But I know the history of this team, at least this franchise, is they have their cutoffs, and if you don't fall within that, then they're not taking you.
Yeah. I don't think that Rodriguez is a bad player. I hope that it doesn't come across like I sound like that. Like we've talked a little bit about rankings, and I have my final linebacker rankings that we'll talk about on another episode, but like, it's not a situation where I think that Jacob Rodriguez can't play in the NFL. Does he fit what the Carolina Panthers are going to ask from the defensive scheme after bringing in Devin Lloyd, right? Because that's the other thing is you're trying to talk about like what is the combination that you're building in that second level with Devin Lloyd. You mentioned that Trevin, maybe didn't have the instincts, but they liked his athleticism to be able to play in coverage. And coverage is actually a position that I think he has gotten better in. It's a part of the game that I think he has gotten better in. I think that the instincts, it's more of like the reaction time. It's more of the reading what's in front of him and keying in quickly enough and making the right decision and playing with discipline. And so there's a little bit of that with Rodriguez that gives me pause, is that he is ultra aggressive. I mean, he's ultra aggressive in a good way, but he also misses and he leaves a lot there. A lot of his tackles that he'll make, you'll see him tackling around the ankles. It's not a collision, head up into the chest. It's just not that style for him. He will miss some tackles because of the arm length. And that's where people say like measurements are stupid and we don't need that. I agree with that to an extent, but there are things that you can see. And when a physical limitation does show up on film, you have to account for that in your evaluation, right? And Rodriguez doesn't have the stopping power. He doesn't have the density. He doesn't have that frame, but he's a really good football player, man. So like, would I be upset with them taking him? Would I not understand the reasoning of taking a guy like Jacob Rodriguez with all of his accolades and the proven ability to play the position at a high level? No, I wouldn't be upset with it. I would just have a little bit of concern about what does that look like on Sundays. I'm going to have that with almost every rookie, to be completely honest, right? Like, we haven't seen any of these guys take NFL snaps. So I'm just going off of preference, and I'm going off of the things that I look for. And when our front office gives us parameters for players, I take that into consideration when I start looking at some of these guys. But you're right. Rodriguez could absolutely be the guy that changes his mind and says, hey, I love his mind. Talking to him and talking ball with him, the guy sees it. He's got it. And I bet on that. So it's very possible, Bryson.
Yeah. I just feel like there's a lot of people that try to just find ways to not like this dude. Instead of looking what he does on the field and the plays he makes, because I think he's a playmaker. And you can't discount that. I just feel like sometimes people just try to find like they don't think his stuff that he makes plays in the college is going to translate to the NFL. And I feel like people are just trying to find a way.
Talking about that peanut punch? Is that
yes,
what you're talking about?
Yes. And I think he showed that on tape, and then he showed it again at the Senior Bowl. Like, it continues to show up wherever he's at. It's not like this one-off thing. And I get it. It's like these all-star game stuff, but when it continually shows up on film at different things, and when he's not in an environment that he's used to and everything else, and he's still performing at a high level, I think you can't discount that. I think this dude is a playmaker. I know he needs to get better at working through blocks, but I also I disagree that when I've seen it, people say that he doesn't like physicality. I disagree with that. I truly do. I've seen that guy work through from one side of the offensive line to the other on 3-4 blocks to force a fumble on the goal line. And I've seen that play. And I know that was just one play. And I know I haven't seen all the tape on this dude. I get that. But when I see that stuff on tape, that doesn't go away from me. Like, I don't think this guy shies away from that. I do think he needs to get bigger. There's no doubt about that. Like, he does. The short arms are an issue, but I think he's in other areas. I think he can overcome that. So I really do think he's going to be a good player. And I don't know how you could argue if we get this guy in the second round, you can be mad at the pick, which I don't think you would be. But I think he would be a great second round pick. I really do. And if they have to trade up to get him, I'm all for it. But that's just from what I've seen. And there are plays where I've seen, I agree with you. There's time where he's lunging and he's not, he's not the blow up type guy where you're going to see this guy literally rip someone's face off. But I've seen plays where like the he shows relentless and fighting through shit, at least the games I've seen. So maybe I'm watching the wrong football games, but that's just my opinion.
All right, we got a couple of super chats we'll get to here, and then we'll kick this off. Mr. Hunky Dory, another $5. Cheers, Mr. Hunky Dory. Another entry into the hat giveaway. Love that.
Mr. Hunky. By the way, Mr. Hunky Dory, I believe you have 5 entries so far.
Woo! Front runner. That's what we call that.
Yeah.
What is the modern NFL? I guess he means concerning measurement prototypes last 10 or 15 years. So you can't really, I'm not going to go down and break down like each individual position of what I feel the modern NFL is. But there's an interesting shift, Mr. Hunky Dory, in my opinion, that you have seen the last probably 10 years. There was an emphasis on speed that actually sacrificed some size. You did start to see some of the smaller defenders that were using speed, especially with some of the rule changes in the pass game and things like that. The emphasis, the priority of the pass being like the key that drives success in the NFL. That's shifting a little bit, in my opinion. You're seeing the heavier personnel to kind of counteract some of the speed and overpower some of the size deficiencies on the other side of the ball. I think that that's pretty evident when you see what NFL teams still do with offensive line. I think is a great barometer of saying that, like, it's still a big man's game. The trenches are still predominantly filled by big dudes, right? Like, we're going to talk about the defensive line here in a second. And there is this like juxtaposition of some of these prospects where there is the behemoth size guys that are wildly inconsistent or have injury concerns. But then you got these smaller guys that can get after the passer, but man, can they handle gap and a half, 2 gap assignments, which is what the Carolina Panthers often are asking. Now we have also heard, just to go off subject slightly, we have also heard that they may be looking at a different approach for their defensive front and switching it up, maybe a little bit more of like a 4-3 under front. Maybe a little bit more of a 4-3 tight, maybe something a little bit different. Do they add in less of the gap and a half, 2 gap stuff to get upfield a little bit more? And if so, does that open up windows for different prospects? But for me, as far as, measurement prototypes and stuff, it's a team by team basis and it's based off of their scheme and what they want their personnel to be able to do. So I don't think there's a one rule fits all type of thing, but big football players are still going to be the most dominant ones if they have the athleticism and the instincts to play the position too, right? Like Sonny Styles is as appealing as he is. because of his size and speed combination and his instincts that he plays with. But if you took 5 inches off of him and 30 pounds or 20 pounds off of him, you kind of just have Torian York, right? So like, and he's not getting anywhere near the accolades of it because of his limitations physically. So that's where I think that the measurements do matter. But no, I don't know that there's a one size fits all. Guys, do you have anything different on that you see?
No, you said it beautifully, Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about measurements. Very similar to Bryson. When you have I get the thresholds on. There's some positions where it really does matter. Offensive line, even though I hate it. It's reality of what it is. I mean, look at Campbell last year, who went shorter arms, got his ass kicked in the Super Bowl. I mean, I know he was going up against one of probably the best D-lines we've seen in a couple of years, but he got his ass kicked. So I get it. Don't always agree with it, but I'll just leave it at that. I want to get to these rankings.
Yeah. We got one last super chat. By the way, Ant, what up, Ant? Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Panther Gal is in here. Panther Gal, appreciate being in here again. And then our friend Katie is here. My phrase, happy Wednesday, friend.
Day late and $1 short, Katie.
Yeah, Katie, you're $1 short of the threshold for the hat entry, but you know what? I got a feeling that the guys here might be able to work something out for you. We'll see what happens.
We might be able to screen it.
So let's do, guys, do you have something that you want to do? Because the chat was pretty much split between defensive line and tight ends. There was really no one way or the other.
Which one do we want to have a fiery conversation about first, I guess? Because we know tight end is so goddamn hotly.
So let's go tight end then, because I know that at least one of us on this show is a big proponent of Kenyon Sadiq. So let's get straight into that. How about it? All right, let's add it to the stage. Here are my final 2026 NFL draft tight ends. These are after combine. These are after final evaluations. There are players that have made this list. Carson Ryan is a new addition to this list. I was tipped off about watching some of his stuff. Big fan. I will explain how some of my rankings may be different from others and why that might look so much different than some of the popular ones that you have seen. First thing I will point out here, I have Kenyon Sadiq as my number 1 tight end prospect.
That's
but
Kenyon
Sadiq has always been my number 1. If you go back to the pre-combine, I had him as my number 1 as well. My thing with Kenyon Sadiq, I have a round 2 grade on him. He's not a round 1 prospect for me. I don't have any tight end with a round 1 grade. And so for me, what I have always said, I do not have a problem with people liking Kenyon Sadiq. I don't have a problem with anyone liking any prospect, first of all, right? That's not the way this stuff goes. It's subjective. Your evaluations could be less subjective if you have a criteria that you judge by and you grade by. And that's what I tend to do. And you'll notice a theme when we start talking about some of this of why mine look the way that they look. Kenyon Sadiq, for me, is not a productive enough player in the rack phase and as a complete route runner yet. But he has the athleticism to become a mismatch. What hurts him, in my opinion, from becoming a mismatch as a tight end is his size. At 6'3" and 240 pounds, he is not the Tucker Kraft. He is not the Dallas Goedert, right? He is not even the Mark Andrews, right? Like the length and everything else. Like it's just not there. Kenyon Sadiq is going to have to win in ways that he didn't necessarily win in college. Now, in college, I also don't think that he was utilized in the best way possible. I thought that he was used a little bit as a clear out because of that threat of his vertical speed. I think that he answered the bell when he was asked to. As a blocker, and here's what's interesting. This is why he actually is my number 1. He's not the best receiving tight end in this group, in my opinion. He is not. And I don't think that he has the best prognosis as a pure receiver of the tight ends in this group. But I think he's a pretty adequate blocker. I do think that he is a pretty legitimate blocker. I don't know that as an inline blocker, he's going to find the same success that he found on Saturdays against NFL ends and edge players and, defensive linemen. If he's, cutting in on a insert block, I don't think that you're going to see him move people the way that you saw him on Saturdays. But he's not a liability as a blocker. You want to talk about liability as a blocker. Eli Stowers, who moved up to my number 3 tight end here, is a liability as a blocker. But I think that he has the purest profile as a pass catcher and as a route runner of any tight end in this draft. Max Clare is one of my personal favorite prospects. His Purdue tape, shout out to Boilermaker Bo, Panther Bo, if you will, new house owner Bo, if you will. That guy could tell you about Purdue, Max Clare, because Max Clare was a little bit lighter, seemed a little bit more comfortable in the scheme that they ran at Purdue, and he was a high volume, really smooth transition from a pass catcher to a running back with the ball in his hands, is a threat at the top of his route. I think he has really good breaks at the top of his routes. I think that he's a fairly nuanced route runner. I think that he has room to improve there. Like Eli Stowers, Max Clare was a former quarterback. So he is new to the position. So him and Eli have this like almost grading curve that when you're watching them and you say, well, he doesn't do all of this to the highest level. He hasn't done it for as long. So can they improve? And you're banking on high-end flashes for those types of players. For me, Max Clare has the blocking, has the size. He's got to add a little bit more. The question with him is when he adds more to his frame, which he will in the NFL, when he adds more to his frame, does it make him more dynamic and more powerful, or does it make him slower and less explosive? That is where you're going to have that question. So looking at the list, boys, what jumps off at you? I just talked about the top 3. We can get into the rest. But what really gets you going? Is it Kenyon Sadiq being one? Is it because I don't have a round 1 on Kenyon Sadiq?
Claire was one I didn't expect. I don't know a ton about a lot of these guys, to be honest with you, but not one I've heard a ton on. So kudos to you, like, for putting them that high. I was shocked that you had Sadiq 1, and I also think it's interesting that you have a second round grade on him. And then Jolly, I feel like, you see his name pop up here and there, but for 4, like, I want to know more from what your perspective about this guy, because that's also intriguing to me. But that's Bryson. Go ahead.
Justin Joly, just to answer real quick.
Bryson, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Justin Joly, former wide receiver, transitioned to tight end, put on some weight, put on some muscle. It did add a little bit of, what's the right word, clunk, I guess, to some of his movement. He's a super powerful dude, and his blocking is above adequate, in my opinion, in line and as a move, if you want to move him as an F. I think that he can do it all. I believe he was 11 of 13 for contested catches this past season. You talk about like vice grips for hands. He is not shy of contact. He will run through you. I don't know that he necessarily has the long speed to take it 65 yards unless he has a full steam and a good angle on a defensive back. But he's going to break off some 25, 30 yarders. That's the other thing with Sadiq. He only had, I think, 2 runs of 30 yards or more in his entire career at Oregon. So those are just question marks, and you like to see some things on film that you could kind of, bank on and see if that transitions. But Justin Joly, for me, is a guy that has a lot of what you look for in a complete type of back. I don't think, or a complete type of tight end. I don't think that he's necessarily a guarantee to be a tight end 1 for a team, but who's to say he can't be like a Jonnu Smith type of player, right? And if you're a Jonnu Smith, there is a role that you could carve out and be really good for that. Kenyon Sadiq is another guy that gets talked about in that regard sometimes. Vernon Davis is a little bit of a higher end comp for him. I think that was what somebody even said in the chat here, talking about Sadiq. Real quick about
I've seen the Vernon Davis
comp. Yeah. And real quick about Max Clare, him, Patchy, the Fade King, appreciate your comment. He says Max Clare combine drills looked underwhelming, bro. I'm sorry. I hear you. I just don't necessarily value the combine stuff as much as I value the tape. And Ohio State, we're going to talk about the other Ohio State tight end that's on this list too. Ohio State doesn't do a lot of favors to their tight ends either, man, to be completely honest. Like, I don't think that their system is terrific for their tight ends. I think that they ask them to do a lot of things. I think that they kind of limit what their freedom is in the system. Will Kazmarek, the other guy that's on here, was a transfer from Ohio State. When he was at Ohio State, he was much more of a volume pass catcher. He was much more, at least as a threat offensively, but he's a dynamic blocker. He's got the size that you want, the frame. I think that he is he is a very undervalued player in this draft. And for me, he just met all of my requirements. I talked about a little bit what I said I would, get into. You see a guy like Kenyon Sadiq I spoke to, the blocking is really what put him at 1 for me because he has the athleticism and the ability to be a pass catcher as well. But the blocking is still so valuable to me. If you are a dead giveaway that when you're out on the field, you are a one-note player and you are tipping the hand of what your offense is likely to do with you out there, then it's a detrimental point for me, right? And I don't mean like a literal point that I'm taking off of a grade. I mean, in an evaluation, it's not a benefit to be that way. Will Kazmarek is a guy that I think if you're playing 12 or 13, you don't know what he's doing, right? You don't know if he's able. This is a guy that still has the ability to catch. He had good hands. He did not have a high drop. He just wasn't used a lot. He ran a 4.7, I believe, at the combine. Adequate speed, I think, for a guy who's 6'5", 260 pounds. Like, this is a really big traditional style blocker. Sam Roush down there at number 5, I think is one of the best, if not the best blocking tight end. Him and Will Kazmarek are 1 and 2 as far as the best blocking tight ends in this class. And he's another guy that I think has that ability to catch passes as well, and they just don't tip the hand. Oscar Delp is a favorite for fans. There's just not enough out there for Oscar Delp for me, guys. I love what he did at the combine. Really appreciate it. There are still moments, though, that when I watch him, I'm like, yeah, he's solid. Is he going to be a tight end too, though, for his entire career? I don't know. There's not enough for me to project him as a volume receiver at the NFL level. And so when I'm looking at it, my grades are going to be, you either need to be a pure pass catcher that I have full faith and confidence you're going to be able to do that at a high level on Sundays, or I need to see enough that you don't have to come off the field because you're a liability in other places. When you're on the field, you have more opportunity. A lot of these guys that I have are going to have extra opportunities because of their two-way ability.
I know we're waiting on Bryce here, but I do just want to touch on Sadiq quickly because we were on the conversation. I'm sorry. I am shocked. I actually thought your knock on him was going to be his blocking because a lot of people there are some contested arguments where people say he can't block, which I think is bullshit. I agree with you. I think he's gonna have a challenge going against defensive ends, but I think he's physical enough where his physicality is there. I should say his shorter arms it's gonna hurt him, I think, especially at the NFL level against those guys. But the dude blocking in space against like DBs and safeties, I think he's got it. I really do.
But you got to get him to those matchups.
Yes.
Because those matchups aren't guaranteed. So you have to scheme him into those matchups to be beneficial. He's not a guy that, depending on if the defense makes an adjustment, you don't feel terrific about his matchup at that point. And so that's kind of it for me. Is he matchup proof? And is he a matchup nightmare on the other side? I don't think he's there yet as a matchup nightmare. I don't think any of these guys are matchup nightmares coming into the league. That's why I don't have a round 1 grade on anybody.
My biggest thing with him being picked in Carolina, I've seen it in the chat, and this has just been my reservation. What team can you point to in the past in the NFL has had success drafting a tight end early and has a successful offense? And there is not many in the NFL historically. So at 19, is that worth the value? And then to the flip side of that, and I think Pets in the Bathtub said it, and we've talked about it on the show, does Canales' offense or the guy who just took over, someone help me out here, Brad Idzik, does their offense value the tight end? And that is the biggest unknown question mark because now we have a new guy calling plays. So we really don't know what the hell we're going to be seeing. I mean, we have an idea. It's from the Canales tree. But does this team really value that position? And that one is just still an unknown for me. And is it worth taking a guy at 19 for that? And that's why it's the biggest question mark for me. It's like, man, I don't know. Like up to this point, I don't think you can say that. But is it because they just haven't had the talent of a player to, do what they want to do at that position? So that's my thing. Sorry, Bryson. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I know you're passionate about Sadiq here. One player that I do like a lot, Ricky, you had mentioned him, is Oscar Delp. I know that he doesn't have a whole lot of tape or opportunity in that Georgia offense last year, I think he had like 20 receptions for like 200 yards. But he has he has really good speed for that position. I think he showed in opportunities that he's had that he has really good hands as well. I can't recall his 40, Ricky. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. I think it was like 4.49 or something like that.
4.49. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me bring up my sheet here because I'll give you all of his pro day stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
I just really think that he's kind of like not a diamond in the rough because a lot of people are talking about him, but he's someone that obviously doesn't have the film of a Sadiq or any of these other tight ends, ahead of him. Right. But I think he's adequate in the blocking aspect of his game. I know that that's kind of a controversial situation in regards to his blocking, but I think he shows enough there. I think he has the ability or that ceiling to reach a level of being a consistent tight end player for this team. And I don't think it's someone that you're going to have to take in round 1 or round 2 in Oscar Delp, because I understand, what you're saying, Ricky. Like, there's just not much there. So it's all projection. So you're not using that early round pick on a tight end position where you're projecting him to take a leap at the next level and be involved at a high level and be that consistent playmaker for that offense. So I really like Delp, and I in my eyes, I would feel comfortable making that projection from his traits and the little bit that he has shown on tape. I think he's going to be fantastic in the NFL.
Well, and make no mistake about it, Bryson. I said that some of the stuff that I do is I look at the high-end flashes, right? And the abilities that are shown, because a lot of this stuff in college, we talk about this very often when we do draft discourse, is it's not what they were asked to do, it's what they were asked to do, right? And so Oscar Delp is a great example of that. He had the 2 seasons that he overlapped, I believe, with Brock Bowers, 2 seasons that he overlapped. One was really only one that he was really active. But all 3 years of him being very active in the Georgia offense, to whatever extent a Georgia pass catcher could be active, if you're not Zachariah Branch, even Ladd McConkey had low numbers, right? And there was projection about like, hey, is he a volume enough player to be able to work at? Brock Bowers, he got his, but he also had Todd Monken as his offensive coordinator, right? So they've got a different system in place at Georgia, and they did not throw the ball to anyone other than Zachariah Branch, and they didn't throw it to him more than 7 yards away from the line of scrimmage, right? So there is something that goes to it. You talk about Oscar Delp's testing, 6'4" 3/4 height, 245 pounds, 9 3/8 hand size, 32 1/4 arm length, 77 1/8 wingspan, 4'4", 940, 1.61 10-yard split. And we know the 10-yard split is imperative of the burst and acceleration off of the line, right? Like the quickness off of the snap. So you got that from Oscar Delp. 38-inch vertical is a tremendous number for a tight end. 10-foot 5-inch broad jump, again, really good number. And then 23 reps on the bench. I mean, this is an impressive physical specimen, right? And the flashes at Georgia are legitimate, and they're against SEC competition, and it's with the context of that Georgia offense. I don't have any problem projecting him as a better pro than a college player, but there's still a giant level of projection to how much better, because if he is just what he was at college, right, then he's a rotational tight end in a tight end room. And if you're talking about a round 2, round 3 draft pick, I think the expectations are going to be for much more than that. So you have to figure out, how does that work? He played with the hairline fracture in his foot, I believe, all year. That seems to be a thing in the past. Really interesting that he, played through that. Shows the toughness of the kid. I believe he's like 22 years old, maybe like 22 years, 8 months old. So he's going to be 23 in his rookie year. That's not super old. But tight end is a big leap anyways from the college game to the NFL. So I just think that there is a ton of projection there. I do think that some of his contested catch situations, his catches in physical parameters, are worth talking about, because when he gets a good hit laid on him, he doesn't come down with the ball as much. When you see a Justin Jolie go out there and he catches some of those really difficult passes, I think that is something that you can look at and say, so is that a deficiency in his game? And does that get better at the next level with bigger, faster defenders making that same play on him? Does he just naturally get better because of more opportunities? Or is that an actual thing that you have to look at and say, maybe he's not terrific at that? But if he's not creating separation in his routes, which we haven't seen enough to know that he's going to do that at a high level, If he's not, and they're close quarter catching situations, is he going to turn that corner for you? Is he going to make those tough catches? You just don't have enough. I do think the fact that I even have him 7th graded out shows how dynamic he has the potential to be. You just haven't seen it at a high level. And then I've got the guys like the Will Kazmarek that I at least have seen him at Ohio run, or catch 40 passes in a year, right? Or 40 passes in his career, 6 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, whatever it was. Eli Stowers, again, high volume. Justin Jolie, ever since he got to NC State, he did everything that they asked of him.
Isn't Stowers just a bigger wide receiver?
He is, and that's why, like, honestly, I think that he is my favorite pass catcher of the group. And I see our friend
Gesicki type.
Yeah, maybe, but he doesn't have the size of Gesicki though. He's 6'4", 235. Now I think he's going to have to add some to that frame. Mm-hmm. Edgar's in here. Shout out to Edgar, our friend. But Edgar will tell you, man, I told him about my affinity for Eli Stowers months ago, probably back in December, that I liked him a whole lot. But when I grade out, it's not just watching and saying, do I like a player, right? Like, I like him, and I'd love for him to be in Carolina because I think he offers a threat. But he's not going to be a blocker, man. And, like, I value that a lot in the NFL from the tight end position. I think that if you're bringing in a tight end.
Carolina does, too.
Carolina does, exactly, bro. And you're going to want a guy that can pass protect and run protect. Looking at Carson Ryan down there at 9, when we talk about Oscar Delp, right, that was not used in a high fashion, so it's hard to kind of like determine what he can do. I want to talk just for a second about NCAA blocking grades for tight ends. Just talking about PFF, right, and snap count and how often they're blocking and how often they're out on routes. Carson Ryan played 687 snaps on offense for BYU. He transferred from like UCLA. I forget what the first place he played at. 419 of those 687 he was blocking. That's a 61% that he was blocking. And he had a 77.3 run block, 69.2 pass block grade. Okay. But as a receiver, he also caught, I think, like 40 passes or something like that, and has the movement skills that are very similar, in my opinion, to Oscar Delp. Now, he doesn't have the straight line speed. His pro day numbers, let me bring up his pro day numbers real quick. Give me 1 second. Got all my stuff and I had it pulled up for this conversation. Pro day numbers for him: 6'3", 3/8, 255 pounds, 10-inch hands, 10-foot hands. Could you imagine that shit? 10-inch hands, 31 3/8 arms, 77 3/8 wingspan. So he's got a longer wingspan, shorter arms than Oscar Delp, a little bit shorter, but he's heftier. He ran a 4.71. And so that's the same as like a Will Kazmarek, right? Will Kazmarek ran a 4.74, but his 10-yard split's a 1.6 flat. That's pretty dang good. 33.5-inch vertical, 9'7" broad, 6.97 on the 3-cone, which for all of the tight ends that worked at the combine and their pro days, that's the top number. And that's agility. His shuttle 4.22, that is tied for the best with Josh Cuevas of or John Michael Gillenborg from Wyoming. I mean, this guy has untapped potential, I believe. And I think that he has shown his ability to stay on the field as a blocker. And those guys just catch my appeal a little bit more, man. I know a lot of fans love Michael Trigg, the tight end out of Baylor, formerly at USC. He is a JT Sanders type of player, in my opinion. He might have a little bit more speed. I don't think that he is dynamic at all. He had the 27-inch vertical that really raised red flags for everybody because they're like, how the hell are you 6'3", 238 pounds, and you have no explosiveness and you're a pass catcher? Like, that's your thing. He's got go-go gadget arms. But for me, man, I just don't see the appeal there. If I'm going to go for a strictly pass-catching tight end, Eli Stowers, and then Tanner Koziel right there at number 8 is a 6'7", 200 and almost 50-pound guy. He is not elusive. He is not twitchy in his routes. He is not nuanced as a route runner. But holy shit, this guy catches a lot of passes, boys. I mean, I'm talking like 70, 60 catches a year for the past couple of years. 7, 8 touchdowns. 6'7". You saw him at the Senior Bowl. He is a red zone threat. He is a vertical seam threat. This is a guy that if he can bulk up a little bit and stay on the line as a blocker a little bit, I think that he has the potential to be a steal in this class. So that's just my overall thoughts on how much I value the blocking component for the tight end position and why I just can't be as high on some players as other people.
Ricky, before we move on, out of these guys, who do you think could be a breakout star? Maybe, let's say, compared to the class of last year, like a guy that maybe we're not expecting to just come out and flash and be comparable to last year's class.
I don't think anybody. I first of all, Colston Loveland was my number one tight end last year over Tyler Warren. I think that what you saw was Colston Loveland is a matchup nightmare. I spoke about that earlier, right? About how some of these guys just aren't matchup nightmares. Doesn't mean that they can't be productive, right? But they don't have that overwhelming frame to be dominant against other defenders. Like you can't put I love D'Angelo Pons for Indiana. He's 5'7" and a quarter, 5'8" with really small arms. What do you do if you get him lined up one-on-one with Colston Loveland, with the way that Colston Loveland moves and his proclivity at the ball? Like, that is a matchup nightmare because if you put a bigger, stronger guy who's slower, Colston Loveland's going to run right past him, and he's a good route runner, right? And he's a blocker. Tyler Warren doesn't have as much shake and wiggle and nuance as Colston Loveland, but man, is he dominant. Man, is he physical, right? He's got sure hands. He's a solid blocker. There's not somebody out here for that, in my opinion. I think that Justin Joly, if he can prove that his athleticism will translate to the next level, as far as like he put on that extra weight, will that last for him? And will he still be able to do what he did in Raleigh in the NFL? I think he could be very surprising. And I think that is if he goes to a certain system that doesn't ask him to do a whole lot of high level route running type stuff, but you get him in space and let him bumble through. I think he's got some real potential. And I also do think that Eli Stowers in the NFL of what it is today, if he were to go to a place like Kansas City, right, where they're going to be creative and they're not asking necessarily him to be their number one blocker, I think you could see him be an absolute weapon in the right offensive coordinator's hands.
Before we move on from tight ends, I want to bring up a comment here from JLC because this has been a hot name for for the Carolina Panthers, at least. Any thoughts on Daquan Wright? So, Ricky, I wanted to get your opinion on him, why he didn't make your top 10, and just your overall thoughts.
I like Daquan Wright. I think that he has the frame, the density, the power, and the versatility to be able to, like we kind of talked about with some of like the Kenyon Sadiq, with the Justin Joly. I think that there is a little bit of he can block. He's not necessarily the best blocker. It's not what he's going to hang his hat on, but he is a good pass catcher. 6'4", 246 pounds, 9 1/4 inch hands, 32 1/4 inch arms. He didn't run. He didn't test at the 40 and stuff at the combine, but you watch him on film. He has speed. He has the ability to make guys miss. He has the power, the leg drive to break through tackles. That's a big thing that I look for too, guys, is that these tight ends, outside of Kenyon Sadiq and maybe Eli Stowers, right? And Oscar Delp, I guess, because of his testing, but it doesn't show up as much as like a high volume. You can see it as a pass catcher. None of these guys are running away from anybody necessarily. That's not like what you're asking them to do. You're asking them, when I put you in a situation, can you create once you get the ball? Now, if that's as like a little slip screen tight end, we've seen that from JT Sanders where he gets the ball and he just kind of like fizzles out. Like he doesn't go far, right? You want a guy that can transition from catching the ball and get upfield quickly. Doesn't mean he has to have the breakaway speed. It means that you're not going to be able to bring him down with an arm tackle. You're not going to be able to hit him on the shoelaces and him go down like a sack of potatoes, right? I think that that's what a guy like Daquan Wright, what a guy like Max Clare churns his legs, man. That is one of my favorite things about him. He has drive. If he can add more, I think that's where he becomes very dangerous. I have an affinity for the big, strong tight ends. I do, man. And that Will Kazmarek is my speed. Eli Stowers is my speed as a pass catcher, but I have such reservations about the physical element. We talked about the modern day NFL. I need a modern day NFL player to have physicality and have a physical mindset. I want him to approach the game by saying, you're going to try to hit me, and I'm either going to be able to eat that hit or I'm going to hit you back and I'm going to go through you. And I don't see that with every single one of the prospects that people like a lot.
Before we go to D-line, I just want to mention we're giving away a draft hat by the end of the episode. Our members automatically entered. If you send in a super chat of $2.99 or more, you'll get an extra entry. Right now, with everyone added and all the extra entries, we have 108 entries so far. So Ricky, without further ado, why don't we talk about the?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, this little double dry hop oat cream IPA is fun. I like that. I'm enjoying that. All right, let's get to the next one. Sorry, I had a little caveat. I'm sitting here drinking and enjoying myself. Wanted to let everyone know. All right, here you go. My top defensive lineman for the 2026 NFL Draft. I have not fallen off of the Peter Woods train. I know many have. His testing and his combine stuff and his pro day stuff was wildly disappointing. The last year and a half of film, I think that he has a tendency to go missing. And I also think that he had a huge tendency of being played out of place. What we talked about with the tight ends is something that goes for every position, man, when I do my evaluations. What does he do really well? And what has he repeatedly shown that he does really well? Peter Woods, for me, is a guy at the point of attack. He has strong hands. His grip is tremendous. His ability to displace bigger men in front of him with violence is evident, and it is consistent, especially in his first year and a half of football. I think that for him, the question is, how can he reaffirm his athleticism to be a disruptor in the backfield? I don't think that he is a nose tackle. That's where they had him playing. I think that he's a 3 tech, even a 5 tech. I think that it depends on what you're going to ask him to do. But Peter Woods has some of the highest flashes on tape of anybody in this class, period. And there's not enough out there for me to say he sucks and he should be. I've seen people have him down in like the bottom half of the top 10. I just don't know how you could do that, man, with the tape. I think that the testing has scared a lot of people off. I think that the physical attributes have scared a lot of people off, and that's fair because I do want this special attributes. He doesn't have the arm length that Dan Morgan and all of them want, right? That is not something that shows up for him. Looking at Peter Woods, 6'2", 302 pounds, 9-inch, 1/8 inch hands, 31 and 1/8 inch arm. So he is below the 32. He's below the 33, which is what they really want for defensive line, right? 76 and 7/8 wingspan. That is also small. 10-yard split. He didn't run his 40 at his pro day. His 10-yard split, 1.67. That's like 5th, 6th best of all defensive line, including some edge players at the combine and pro days. Like you're talking about Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State, 1.63 on the 10 split. Cassius Howell, right? 6'2", 250-pound edge, really short T-Rex arms, 1.58 on his 10-yard split with a 4.59 40. Peter Woods has that athleticism. He can get back. He could disrupt. 29-inch vertical, so the explosiveness wasn't there. That was disappointing. The broad jump, 8'8". That was disappointing. His 3-cone was a 7.7. That's not outstanding, but it's not terrible either. You look at, again, Danny Dennis Sutton was 6.9. George Gums Jr., 7. The shuttle for him was the short shuttle, 4.54. That's not bad at all for an interior defensive lineman. Chris McClellan, another guy on this list, had a 5-second flat. He was also 8.18 on the 3-cone. Grayson Halton, a really a favorite of mine as an interior pass rusher. You see him there on the list, 4.79 on the shuttle. He was 1.7 on his 10-yard split. So all of the talk about Peter Woods isn't athletic and that the testing showed that he's not good, I don't know that I agree with it. I think that there were some disappointing results, but man, his tape is really good. He is in the backfield a lot. I'm a big fan. Bryson, is there anything on this list that you want me to get to, or is there anything that surprises you? I bet there is.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily surprised, but I would like to know your opinion on this. I really like Caleb Banks a lot, and I know there's obviously some injury concern there, being that he played in 3 games last year. But I think obviously a behemoth of a man at 6'6", 330, has that position versatility on the defensive line. He's played a lot of positions on that D line. Where do you think he'd be ranked if he's coming off a healthy year and he played a full season and the injury concern wasn't there? I mean, is this a guy you could see going in the first round?
Well, I mean, there's multiple things I think that give me pause with Caleb Banks. Okay. Obviously the foot concern is a real concern, right? He's had like 2 or 3 different foot injuries in the past year. Surgery on it. Now, look, he did all of those redonkulous things at the combine. And when I say redonkulous, we're talking about a 6'6", 327-pound guy with 10-inch, 7/8-inch hands, 35-inch arm length, 85 3/4 wingspan. That giant human being ran a 5.0440 with a 176 10-yard split. He had a 32-inch vertical and a 9'6" broad, right? Like those are insane athleticism numbers. I mean, absolutely.
And they got
insane.
the insight from Cam Jackson. You can't tell me that guy ain't queuing in this front
No
office.
doubt about it. No doubt about it, man. Like, and it is intriguing when you talk about high-end flashes. His high-end flashes are as good as anybody else in this class. They really are. They're also few and far between. Bryson, I'll tell you this. You asked me if he was coming off of a healthy year, right? Would he be a first-round pick? If he improved from where he was healthy for the most part last season and even for most of it the year before, yeah, maybe if he improved. But he hasn't exactly improved on a lot of things. Now, look, his pressure numbers were great.
Peter Woods didn't either, though.
No, he hadn't. But Peter Woods played, and he still showed the ability to do those things. My issue that I have with Caleb Banks, first of all, he's 23. He's going to be 24 in his rookie season. So he's an older prospect. Peter Woods is 21. This is a guy who has multiple foot issues, so that's obviously a big thing for me. His missed tackle percentage career for Caleb Banks with his 35-inch arms and all that strength, 25.5% missed tackles.
A lot of arm tackles.
And he wears down as games go on.
Yeah.
His conditioning is a real thing as well. You talk about like just his ability to get into the backfield. Sure, it's there. He has 7 career sacks in 5 years. Now, his first 2 years at Louisville, sparingly played, right? You're talking about 47 snaps combined in his first 2 years. But at Florida, he played about 850 total snaps, and he had 6 sacks out of 56 pressures. So he gets there. He's disruptive. I like that. But the missed tackle percentage for him at Florida, 50% last year. Now, look, he only played 96 snaps, right? But he missed 4 tackles in those 96 snaps last season. 6 missed tackles the year before that at 26%, and then 12% in 2023. Florida has a lot of talent on their defensive line. We know he played with Cam Jackson, right? There is reason to think that Caleb Banks hasn't really put it together in a way that makes you say, even if he's healthy, he's a first-round player for me. The flashes are there, but man, his pad level is a real issue, and it's going to be for a guy that big, right? But it's a serious thing, man. Like, and he is wildly inconsistent. If he didn't have the combine, if he didn't test at the combine, and this was all going off of film, it wouldn't be a first or a second round grade for me, guys. Like, it just wouldn't. I don't think that he has shown that tremendous of ability. You bank on the athleticism. If you could get him, if the Panthers, worked out a trade in the first and then trade back in the second or something, right? If you get him in the 60 range or the 50 range, maybe it's worth taking that shot for a total game changer, because his movement ability, it's wild, bro. It is wild for his size.
All right, Ricky, if I can ask. Why are we hating on Lee Hunter? I think DJ had him as a possible first-round pick at the Senior Bowl. I know a lot has changed and transpired since then, but hit us on Lee Hunter and why you got him ranked 8. That was the biggest.
That's the one that stood out to you?
Yeah.
So it's not hate necessarily on Lee Hunter, but Lee Hunter has, first off, let's talk about his physical composition, right? Let me bring up his numbers. He is 6'4", 6'3.5", 318 pounds, 9 1/4 inch hands, 33 1/4 inch wingspan or arms, 80 3/4 wingspan, 5.840, 1.7910, 21.5 vertical, 8'4" broad. So he's not explosive. His composition, his build, he is so top heavy, man. Like his bottom half is very thin. And for a nose tackle, which is pretty much what he should be playing, maybe he can play a little bit of shade to three tech. You know what I mean? He can collapse the pocket, man. It's not that he can't offer you something in way of pass rush. He's got pressures under his belt. He's got sacks under his belt. His most productive season actually came at UCF before transferring over to Texas Tech. At Texas Tech, I do have to have the caveat of they had the transfers of David Bailey and Romello Height over there on the sides, extending and giving those opportunities to Lee Hunter inside. Lee Hunter is a very strong, powerful man, and he has some decent movement. I worry about his anchor at the next level. I worry about his drive when he is in a gap and a half, 2 gaps. Is he going to be able to hold up from double teams? Like I imagine like Damian Lewis and Ike Ekwonu getting their hands on him, right? Or Damian Lewis and now Luke Fortner, but let's say Cade Mays when Cade was here, 2 big guys getting underneath his pad level because, again, he's got some pad level issues as well. And not having that leg drive, those are the things that I think that I worry about with Lee Hunter. And I think that he's a very specific type of player. And I think he can offer you some value, but does he offer more value than the guys ahead of him for me? Not personally, because I look at Dominic Orange. I'm going to be higher on him than most any site that you'll see or any list that you'll see. The Big Citrus. I'm a big fan of this guy. And he doesn't have the pressures. He doesn't have the sacks. He is a nose tackle. He is a big space eater. He is totally capable of gap and a half, 2 gaps, and holding a point of attack. I think he collapses pockets just as well, if not better, than the Lee Hunters and the Caden McDonalds, the guys that are really getting the shine at nose tackle. I would bet on Dominic Orange being a better NFL player than he was at college with having a little bit more ability. I am a big fan of him as a nose tackle. So Lee Hunter, then you talk about like the big long arms and stuff, right, Curtis? Daryl Jackson Jr. has that, right? Like, and Caleb Banks has that, and they offer a whole lot more as far as like, juice and uptick as a pass rusher and as an athlete. And Lee Hunter, I think, is also an older prospect. I can't remember exactly how old he is. I want to say that he's maybe turning 24 as well. So when I see these older, not finished products, no one's a finished product when they get in there, but older prospects that you're not looking for the development of like, hey, is there a lot of untapped potential? I've seen Lee Hunter do everything that Lee Hunter could do, and he does it well in college. Do I think that he is a second-round pick in the NFL? I do not. I have a 3rd-round grade on Lee Hunter personally. And I know a lot of people that love Lee Hunter. I don't have it that way.
Okay, one last question I have, and then Bryson, if he's got any others. Mike K has been hitting home on this. I've noticed recently that he thinks Carolina is going to have to try to find someone to replace A'Shawn Robinson in the draft. Out of this list, and he was specifically talking about the versatility that guy played along the defensive line, could play multiple spots and get the job done. Out of your list here, who do you think does that best?
That's tough. Grayson Halton's one of my favorite players, but I think that he's a very limited role of a player, and I don't think that he fits as an A'Shawn Robinson replacement. I think he's more of a Turk Wharton type of replacement. Daryl Jackson Jr. is a guy that I would look at with the arm length, with the ability to rush from 3 tech, 5 tech, even at nose. I think that he's the guy that can kind of play the keys of the defensive line. If you want a guy that can move back and forth, I think he can do it. On the high end, I do think that Kristen Miller is a absolutely world of untapped potential, man. Like, he is not going to get the recognition that a lot of former Georgia defensive linemen have gotten. He didn't do a lot of the flashy stuff. He didn't do a lot of the sexy. He didn't get a lot of the sacks. This kid is 21 years old with brute power, guys. And I saw him. There were reps of him and Connor Lew. So a lot of what I do with this too, and I should have talked about this with Dominic Orange, so I'm really glad that I drunkenly stumbled back into this part of my conversation here. Dominic Orange, you watch reps against Sam Heck. You watch reps against Logan Jones. I want to see those iron sharpens iron. I want to see those, hey, these are my top 3 on this position going against my top 3 on this position. Those guys that can hold their own and actually, cause a little bit of havoc against those best players, that's an easy translation for me to project at the next level. Because if I think that Connor Lew can come in and be a great center in the NFL in 3 years' time, could be a top 7 center in the NFL, and I've seen Kristen Miller give him some problems, right? That gives me the warm and fuzzies, man. And you watch him play against Alabama. You watch him play against, some of these stout Georgia Tech, Keelan Rutledge. You watched him go up against Keelan Rutledge, a guy that I'm very high on. I think that these are the reasons why I really like these players. So Kristen Miller has the arm length, to give you a little bit of like his stats here as well. 6'3.5", 328 pounds. So very stout. 9 and 7 inch, almost 10-inch hands, 33-inch arms. So there's that barometer right there for you. 80 3/4 wingspan. I mean, you talk about like length and size and just broad in the upper body, but he's not like Lee Hunter. He's not top heavy, man. He is stout and he's got power that he generates from his lower half, the torque and the way that he can hold and move. Like his grip strength also is tremendous. I mean, I am a really big fan of Kristen Miller, and I'm surprised that he's in like the 4, 5, 6 range on most of these lists, because when I watched him, man, he stood out a lot to me. And I don't know if maybe I'm just looking for something different or something like that. But like this dude and Dominique Orange stood out a lot. Caden McDonald is an Edgar Salmingo Jr. favorite. Love him. And I think he has some untapped potential. But I think that he's a very safe nose tackle type prospect. I don't know that he has a lot of upside and versatility outside of what he does well, although the testing would allude to him potentially having a little bit more.
Let's get to our super chat here. Ben Davis 287, 199, best Panthers pod around.
Cheers.
Cheers,
out,
Ben
man.
Davis.
Thank you.
Bryson, any other questions on the defensive line here?
One last thing, Bryson, that maybe you can talk about on this too. Curtis was just asking me, and I don't know if you heard because you stepped away for a second, was asking me about the A'Shawn Robinson replacement element to it. Chris McClellan is another guy that I think could offer that. And he's down here at 9. And Tyler Onyedem is a little bit undersized, but McClellan, from a size standpoint, right? This is a guy 6'3", almost 6'4", 313, 11-inch hands, 33 and 7/8, so almost 34-inch arms, 83.5-inch wingspan. Now, the explosiveness isn't necessarily like the greatest, but 29.5-inch vertical, almost 10-foot broad at 9 foot 9 inches, 5.05 on the 40, 1.8 on the 10-yard split. I mean, he's not like a stationary type of guy. And when you talk about, when I think of A'Shawn, Bryson, I think of his giant arms and like his size and just his ability to handle a wide radius of collision, right? And so Chris McClellan, I think that if we want to look at a realistic thing that we could look at in round 4 or 5, right? Maybe pick 119, 158, 159 in that range. If you don't want to use a premier pick on defensive tackle or interior defensive player, I do think that Chris McClellan is a guy that I am pretty high on. From a production standpoint, he also, I believe, has like double-digit sacks in his career at Missouri. A little bit unheralded of a player. I thought that he was better than Zion Young this past year for Missouri, and Zion Young gets a lot of the credit that Chris doesn't. I think that Chris is a former Florida commit. He's a high caliber, high prospect. So I think that Chris McClellan is another guy that I would add into there. Sorry for jumping in right before you, Bryson.
No, it's okay. I mean, I really don't have anything else to add. I would reiterate that I think, and I hate to go back to it, but I think Caleb Banks has that versatility as well, from that wide 9 to the nose tackle. I think he's played that at Florida. I mean, obviously not this past season as much as we would like to have seen, but throughout his time there, obviously some injury concerns. But I'm just so infatuated with his size and his physical abilities that it's like while I'm concerned about that foot and everything, I think the projection for me is kind of similar to how I feel about like a Jacob Rodriguez or a Oscar Delp from earlier. It's like I feel like he's going to be a better pro than what he was in college. So and that's obviously if getting past the injuries, right? You have to be on the field to be able to prove that point. But hopefully that's something in his past, and he's moving past it, and he's going to be a healthy pro in the future. So I would like the Caleb Banks there in that situation.
And just to talk about that just for a brief second, and Curtis, just to let you know and let the chat know, I updated the banner. Super chat of 199 or more gets an entry, because it seems that we have a caveat here with the super chats on the YouTube account that you can do 199 or 499 are the two lowest available options. So Katie, you're 199, you're in there. Keaton, you brought this up. You got the 199 here on the super chat right now. you're in there, bro. You're already in there because
Ben
you're a tap
Davis,
room.
you're in there.
But now you got another one. So you're all in there. Yeah, Ben Davis, you're in there. Especially with that wonderful comment that you gave.
Yeah.
Best Panthers pod in the world. I mean, you might end up getting 6 or 7. I don't know, man. Who knows? No, I'm just kidding. We're very, very honest about our things here. Caleb Banks, the last thing that I'll say about that, because I saw somebody in here say no love. Oh, right here. Damn, we have no faith in Bobby Brown. I do, Himpachi. I do have faith in Bobby Brown. I liked Bobby Brown last year. I think that if they play a little bit more of an aggressive front, I think that he can also benefit from that as well. And Curtis brought up the inside track when talking about Cam Jackson and Caleb Banks. Cam Jackson is not somebody to be forgotten about. The Caleb Banks size thing that we're talking about and that we're going nuts for, right? That was Cam Jackson. And Cam Jackson doesn't have the injury concerns. He's got the pad level concerns the same way that Caleb Banks does. The inconsistency was another thing for Cam Jackson. But, man, they liked Cam. They brought him in here for a reason. They got rid of A'Shawn Robinson for a reason. Now, the reason also was the $10 million that they saved. But maybe it's because they also got this giant dude behind him in 23-year-old Cam Jackson that they feel like the combination of him and Bobby Brown with Derek Brown and Turk Wharton playing in the right way that Turk Wharton should be playing, maybe they do add a guy like Chris McClellan or a Daryl Jackson or, you know what I mean, even a Grayson Halton that has a specific role. So I think that it's important that when we talk about Caleb Banks and his size that we don't forget that Cam Jackson, a former Florida Gator, is at home with us already that has that same size.
All right, before we end this, I first want to thank Ricky for the rankings. Your work does not go unnoticed, and most of the time people pay to hear the shit that you're putting out. So seriously, thank you so much. I know you put a lot of work into this shit throughout the entire offseason. It is a lot of work. The amount of hours, I can't imagine how many hours you put in actually watching the tape. It's a lot. I know you enjoy it. I know you talk to people to be tapped in.
Do I enjoy it? Are you sure? No,
I feel like sometimes you do, and then there's other times you're like, fuck this.
It's the only reason I like doing it, man. I appreciate the kind words, but like we don't charge for this stuff, or I don't charge for it because it's not the reason why I do it, man. I do it because I love talking ball, and I do this shit when I was younger. So I appreciate getting to do it. I appreciate that people care enough to listen to us. And it's a fun thing for the three of us to talk about, even if we didn't have 500 beautiful people watching this with us right now. The three of us would still have fun talking about this stuff.
Amen to that. James Cody, $4.99. I know character is a huge factor with who the Panthers draft. Any tight ends, D-linemen have any of those issues, or are they all standouts in that regard?
Well, I mean, there's some character concerns going around about some of the guys. I won't delve too much into all of that because I don't really want to. But Caleb Banks, by all accounts, is a pretty good dude. He's got some things in his past, I believe. Peter Woods, I know that there's big questions about his conditioning and stuff like that. But as far as like big time personality or like legal red flags, there's not a whole lot that I have been privy to that would take somebody off of the board necessarily.
All right. We're not done yet because we have to talk about this. It came out tonight, and we would be stupid not to. And this guy is definitely tapped in with the Panthers. And this goes to the train that we were talking about earlier with Mike K. So I'm going to bring this up. Jordan Reed, we've had him on the show before. And I don't know why it's not. Is there a reason? Here we go. Let's try. There we go. So Jordan Reed tweeted this out. Looks like just before 6 tonight. He said, following pro day today, Indiana wide receiver Amari Cooper Jr. will head to Carolina for a 30 visit with the Panthers per source. They've done a lot of work on receivers, and Cooper Jr. could be an option at 19th overall. So now we have not only a beat reporter within the state and now Jordan Reed, who works for ESPN, saying Carolina is tapped into the wide receivers. And I know some people can't stand taking another wide receiver for the third year in a row in the first round. But man, don't be surprised if this happens. I mean, this is starting the sales are turning this way, at least for what they want us to believe at this point. So I think this is still another big year for Bryce Young. And do they fully want to see what they have in him with another weapon before they give him that massive contract after this year? I mean, that could make sense for them. And they've spent heavily on defense in free agency, which they did last year. Do they find him another weapon and they're not entirely sold on what Liggett brings to the table? So, guys, thoughts on this real quick? I know we talked about KC for a minute, but Carolina, they're tapped in with these wide receivers as much as some people don't want it.
Bryson, why don't you go first, since I was just talking for like an hour and a half?
Yeah. I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier on the show. I love it. I am all for getting Bryce Young weapons, whether that's a tight end or whether that's a wide receiver in the first round. Curtis, you mentioned they obviously spent heavy on defense, and they did not add much besides John Mechie to the offense, besides the offensive line, in regards to weapons for Bryce Young. So I think that they are saving that for the draft. It is obviously a cost-effective way to add high-level talent to the offense. We saw what happened last year when they added T-Mac, and he's a 1,000-yard receiver, offensive rookie of the year. That's probably pretty enticing to maybe dip in that bucket again for them, even considering what happened with Xavier Liggett to this point in his career. So they're doing their research on these wide receivers. I think that when you have for me, I talked to him earlier, I don't really buy into a lot of the what the coaches or the GMs say in interviews leading up to the draft or after the season's over. I do believe in and buy into local reporters that are tapped into what this team knows and potentially is doing. I trust Mike Kay. I trust Jordan Reed, who's been on our show. These guys are in the know, and when they put out things like this, it's not because this is just what they think. It's they have information. They've talked to people, and this is what they've been told. So I think that there is smoke and fire there for the Carolina Panthers to add a playmaker, whether that is a tight end or whether that is a wide receiver in the first round. So I would not be surprised by that. I also would not be surprised if they go offensive tackle or if they go defensive line. I think their options are wide open at this point. But I would love if we get to 19 and the best player on their board is a wide receiver, if that's Jordan Tyson, if that's Omar Cooper, if that's Casey Concepcion, who I am growing to like more and more every single day, I'm totally fine with that. So I love that that they've kept an open mind and that their past selections in the first round are not dictating their future selections in the first round. I love that aspect because I think a lot of people would agree they missed on Xavier Liggett to this point, at least in his career, and they hit a home run on T-Mac. So they've got about a 50-50 shot here based on the past, the wide receivers in the first round. I know Xavier Liggett was a later pick, and T-Mac was obviously a top 10 pick, but you're right there in the middle now, and you're going to have your option of a couple receivers, and they're doing their homework on players that are potentially going to be there at that position. So I'm tapped in. I love it. I think that it's a very smart way to go about it and keeping your options open and not letting the past dictate the future. So that's where I sit with that.
Want a spicy tidbit to end it here, Curtis? Talking about all this. So I have Omar Cooper Jr., Casey Concepcion, and Jordan Tyson in the same bucket of prospects. Carnell Tate and Mekhi Lemon are 1 and 2, and they are in a tier of their own for me. Jordan Tyson, for me personally, and I think we talked about this on the very first one that we did, Bryson, where we drafted Jordan Tyson, and I was like, I'm not as high on Jordan Tyson, but I like him, and like if he's there and he falls there, I like it, right? But then every time that we've talked about it too, we've done when we had KC last time, I was like, the idea here is like we talked about at the top of the show, and Bryson is just glitching like hell, isn't he? Like I can't tell if he's like smiling at me and freezing or what. Looking at these two, or Omar Cooper Jr., what's great about him, contact balance is the name of the game for Omar Cooper Jr. All the fans that have wanted Deebo Samuel, that element here on the offense here in Carolina, you're probably going to be a really big fan of Omar Cooper Jr. And Omar Cooper Jr. is a more advanced at the wide receiver position in my evaluation than Deebo Samuel was coming out. But he offers you a lot of, if you get the ball to him with a little bit of space, he'll create a lot of space. And it doesn't matter if he has to go through defenders to do it. He doesn't necessarily have the ultra acceleration and burst that a Casey Concepcion does. Maybe he's not as nuanced of a route runner, but he's also not a empty cabinet when it comes to route running and the ability to run a fairly full route tree. I think what this also is for me, boys, just to end it with this is also doing your homework on potential if you draft at 23, 24, 25, and not just 19. I don't think that this is a shoe-in that these are targets at 19 that they want more than anybody else. I think that this is just hey, we really like all of these guys, but we're not positive where we would take them. So we want to make sure that we have our evaluation secured and in place when we look at all of them. I think that at the end of the day, when you look at Jordan Tyson and his injury situation, you're going to run into a place where they say, if we're looking for a reassurance of if Jalen Coker has had his issues staying healthy and T-Mac and then Xavier Leggette's been disappointing, I'm not sure that they're going to attach their hitch to Jordan Tyson, who maybe isn't going to be available all the time. And also Jordan Tyson is not a can't miss prospect, guys, in my opinion. Inconsistency is the name of the game with Jordan Tyson. He's got some tremendous flashes of high-end ability. He's got all of the moves that you want as a high-end route runner. They're not put together all the time, and I'm not sure he fully understands how to utilize them all the way. I don't want to go too crazy here and give it all away, but I think that my final wide receiver rankings are going to surprise some people when it comes to Jordan Tyson and the two Casey Concepcion and Omar Cooper that we just talked about.
Get your popcorn ready. That's the tease right there. All right, let's do this thing. Let's spin this damn wheel. So we're giving away a draft hat here. My first time running this wheel, so if I fuck this up, give me some grace.
Wait, was my internet messed up too?
Yeah, you paused. That's why me and Bryson were laughing.
Yeah,
I paused a lot too.
Just for the like a minute ago. It wasn't.
Son of a bitch. You probably missed the best part.
So here is the wheel, folks. There it is. I'm gonna shuffle it up here.
Wow, how many entries, Curtis?
A couple times. 112.
Wow.
1,000. Look at all those colors.
Yeah. We got to remember, people had several of the same entry type.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, multiple. So,
and we're giving away more than one hat, right? We're going to do this again?
Yeah, we'll do this again. So, like we do at every giveaway, excuse me.
We call first and then we spin the wheel.
We will pick a winner. We'll also pick a couple backups because if the person does not reach out to us within a reasonable amount of time, we'll move to the next person. We've done this for every giveaway. So all I do is just, it says it literally on the wheel. Okay. All right. Without further ado, here we go. This is for the 2026 Panthers draft hat. Mr. Hunky Dory.
Mr. Hunky Dory.
Okay.
So if you are in here, Mr. Hunky Dory, I think you were on YouTube commenting.
Yep.
There's not a way to message us on YouTube. So if you have Twitter, reach out to us on Twitter and let us know through the DMs, and we'll get in contact with you. We'll get your information and we'll send that out. I will do one or two more just to be safe. But
do two more contingency plans.
Mr. Hunky Dory is the winner.
Congratulations, Hunky Dory.
Yeah.
And appreciate your questions and stuff tonight, man. I thought that he has some really good questions tonight.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Just past Katie.
Hunky Dory again.
It's just meant to be, dude. This is your hat, Hunky Dory.
Katie's been like a 1 or 2 away last couple spins. All right, we'll try to get at least 2 more.
He goes 3 for 3.
Hayden.
All right, Hayden win. Hayden, I believe, has won something before.
Yes, he has.
Okay, so we know that we have access to Hayden. Hunky Dory, you're the winner for 2.
And just 1 more for
Curtis. Just likes spinning the wheel. He's just having a fun time. Look at him up there.
And Cuddy's won it. Cuddy's won too, man.
Yep.
All right, there you go. And
All
we
right.
do have a new member, real quick, to end the show. Jay Balmer 5.
Let's
New
go,
member.
Jay.
So, Jay, when we do our giveaway of the hat the next time, you're automatically entered now, my friend. Appreciate
Cheers,
your support, man.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
All right. Let's get this.
Keaton, this wheel is glitched. There's an anti-Colorado bias, Keaton.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We had Ricky mention it before, 526 folks tuned in. We appreciate y'all. We'll be back probably at some point, probably next week, I think. I don't know. Ricky will not be there, but we will be back in some form or fashion.
Maybe not as fat.
here.
I'm not going to be there.
And just to put this on everyone's radar, because I want to get this out there, and we talked about this, we will be doing a live reaction to the draft on Thursday, draft night. So look forward to that on our YouTube. We did it last year. I believe it was Bryson. Bryson and Ricky, you guys both were there for that?
Edgar and I did it for the most part, and then Bryson came on and smoked a cigar when we drafted Tetaroa and got yelled at in the house.
I did. I got a lot of trouble for that.
I missed that. I was at the draft last year, but I will be there. I'll be here for this. So me, Ricky, I think we're going to have Edgar on. So yeah, it should be fun. It should be a good time. So stick around for that. I'm pretty excited for that.
Katie's birthday in 2 weeks. We'll get that. And now, Mr. Hunky Dory, I see you in the chat. Yeehaw! I smell Hog Molly's incoming. Mr. Hunky Dory, did you hear that you won? Do you have a account that you want us to reach out to get in touch with you? You got like another 10 seconds that you could drop a line here in the chat so that we can reach out to you.
Please do that. Is that a missed field goal as your picture?
I believe it was. Yeah. Perfect. I love it.
Is that Eddie Pinheiro behind that football? No. Thank you guys again. We got a bunch of more draft stuff coming up here, so stay tuned for that. We'll be giving away some more draft hats as well. So appreciate every single one of you guys. Again, Mr. Hunky Dory, reach out to us on Twitter. It's at Panthers on Tap. DM us, and we'll get that thing sorted out for you. But until next time, we appreciate you guys as always. And yeah, I fucked that up. Keep pounding.